would like to introduce the representatives from our Citizens Budget Advisory Committee who will be making their annual report and recommendations. Thank you guys for being flexible and being here today. They were supposed to be here for our meeting that was snowed out or snowed in. So thank you very much. Yep. Dr. Hunter.
Just let me know when. All right, well, good evening, everyone, and school board members and community members. My name is Dr. Alicia Hunter, and I'm the chair of the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee. Tonight, I'm presenting the 2025 CBAC Annual Report. This presentation is based on the 2025 Citizens Budget Report for Stafford County Public Schools, which is citizens' advocacy for public school funding gaps and sustainable solutions. This full report will be available on board docs. It's about 30 pages long. It's a great read for a Sunday afternoon. So this will be an abbreviated version of that report, but please check it out when you get a chance. This report represents collective research from Stafford citizens with expertise in law, commercial real estate, education, military, government contracting, nonprofit leadership, and finance. Tonight we have a clear and urgent message. Stafford County ranks 117 out of 132 school divisions in Virginia for per pupil spending, despite rapid residential growth and increasing student enrollment. We're going to present not just a problem, but a roadmap forward. This is about accountability, collaboration, and making education funding a real priority for Stafford County's future. Next slide. Oh, I can do it. All right. So CBAC serves as a bridge between the community and policymakers, advising the school board on resource allocation and financial needs. Our role is to evaluate funding trends, advocate for necessary investments, and ensure transparency. Just want to go over our accomplishments over the last 2 years. And just a quick summary, we've really focused on research, community engagement, and advocacy. Just in the last year, we've partnered with 20+ PTA and PTO groups, engaged with school principals, and worked with economic development organizations. We've developed an advocacy toolkit to educate citizens about school funding and how to participate in local civic engagement. We have also prioritized student engagement as well. We've partnered with the Social Studies Department to align learning with civics education, fostering youth involvement and advocacy, as well as sought out opportunities for students to receive volunteer hours for local civic engagement. Our work has resulted in more support for advocacy, which further supports the shared vision for investing in our public schools. Stafford County is one of the best places to live in Virginia. We're ranked highly for young professionals, families, and home ownership. Our population surge is driven by new residential developments, a strong job market, and our proximity to Washington, D.C. This growth brings opportunity, but also increased demand for public services, infrastructure, and most importantly, education. Stafford County Public Schools must keep pace with expansion to sustain high-quality education and workforce readiness as the county continues to thrive. According to the Stafford Economic Development Authority, Stafford County's economic strategy focuses on 4 key industries: cybersecurity, data centers, logistics and supply chain, and advanced manufacturing to drive business expansion and long-term economic sustainability. We are becoming an ideal hub for data centers and technology firms. Very exciting. Additionally, Stafford County Public Schools is experiencing rapid enrollment growth with over 32,268 students currently enrolled, a number that continues to rise due to increasing residential development and population expansion. Despite Stafford's economic growth and business-friendly policies, we lack the capacity to fully fund our schools. For years, superintendents have warned that school budgets are trimmed to the bare minimum, just enough to keep the lights on, yet enrollment keeps growing, classroom sizes are increasing, and Stafford remains ranked 117th in per pupil spending in the state. Stafford County faces a $14.2 million gap to fully fund the proposed FY26 budget on top of an additional $59 million in unmet, unfunded needs. This isn't about excess spending, it's about meeting the basic educational needs of a rapidly growing student population. Stafford County teacher salaries remain uncompetitive, driving educators to neighboring districts like Prince William. Prince William County is offering roughly 13% increases in teacher salary over the next couple of years, while Stafford struggles to match competitive pay. The Stafford 2040 vision promotes a public education as an economic driver, yet underfunding our schools undermines this goal. We cannot expect to attract top industries while struggling to provide competitive teacher salaries and modern learning environments. If we continue this trajectory, Stafford's competitive edge will fade. Businesses, families, and top educators will choose better funded communities, leaving Stafford at a disadvantage. Our research shows outdated state funding formulas keep Stafford underfunded, limited local revenue investment leaves Stafford lagging behind its regional peers, over-reliance on residential zoning instead of commercial development strains school funding, declining student achievement is a direct result of insufficient school funding. Let's go a little bit deeper. Why do we want to highlight outdated state funding formulas? We are the 8th richest county, but the funding models overestimate Stafford's ability to fund schools locally, and these formulas limit state funding to pay our teachers competitively and our base state funding on state ratios over actual student needs, failing to provide modern, high-quality education. Since we have limitations on state funding due to outdated models, local funding is key. Neighboring districts such as Prince William and Loudoun counties invest significantly more in education than Stafford. Prince William funds 52% of its school budget locally, while Loudoun funds 71% of its school budget locally, while Stafford only funds 36.7%. Now, Loudoun is not a typical comparison, but I've included Loudoun because of the revenue they generate from data centers, and Stafford EDA promotes Stafford as a future data center hub. We have to acknowledge the gap in local funding, how it directly affects teacher pay, classroom resources, and student achievement. Stafford markets itself as a low-cost business location, which attracts companies but does not translate into higher school funding. Economic development should not come at the expense of public education. Low cost to do business, at what cost to schools? Look at the map here. Look at our residential zoning compared to our commercial zoning. Green, brown, and yellow represent agriculture and residential zones, while pink, blue, and purple indicate commercial zones. The overwhelming majority of Stafford's land is residential. Stafford has prioritized residential expansion over commercial development, increasing demand on schools without the tax base to support them. As citizens, we've done the research, but now let's take a step back and compare. How does Stafford stack up regionally and statewide in education funding, and what impact does that have on student achievement? Virginia school divisions receive less funding than national and regional averages. West Virginia, a state with a lower cost of living and fewer economic resources, spends more per student on public education than Stafford County. This raises a critical question. How can we expect to compete regionally when we invest less in our students than a neighboring state with fewer financial advantages? Neighboring districts invest more. Why not Stafford? Investment in schools directly correlates with student success. More funding equals higher SOL pass rates, lower dropout rates, and better college career readiness. Let's take a brief look at Stafford County Public Schools per pupil spending outcomes. We spend $13,768 per student. During the 23-24 school year, our reading pass rates were 71% across all grades. Now let's take a look at Falls Church City. Now, for the sake of example, Falls Church City spends nearly twice as much per student, $23,673 versus our $13,000. Falls Church reading pass rate is 92%. Let that sink in. 71% versus that 92%. The gap in funding results in lower academic outcomes. How much we spend matters. Our research as citizens concludes Stafford's current funding model is failing. Without action, student achievement will continue to decline. Investing in schools is investing in the county's future. Stafford must act now to fully fund education. We have prepared a 9-point action agenda that offers solutions for sustainable, long-term school funding. So each board member should have a 3-page document that has our full 9-point action agenda. And so I'll just give a brief overview of each action point, and then we'll wrap up. Action 1, we want you to fully fund the superintendent's $49.6 million budget to stabilize school operations, protect student services and special programs, retain teachers, and ensure livable wages for support staff, and address deferred maintenance and safety concerns. The school board must go beyond proposing a budget. They must fight for it through public advocacy, negotiation, and collaboration with the Board of Supervisors. Mrs. Patricia Healy, has years of underfunding led to the fiscal challenges we face today, including declining student achievement and deteriorating buildings? Action 2, conduct a comprehensive study and annual stakeholder surveys to identify citizen priorities for school funding, guide budget decisions, and strengthen funding advocacy with data-driven insights. The school board must move beyond informal feedback and word of mouth by conducting comprehensive studies and annual stakeholder surveys to guide budget priorities. Dr. Sarah Chase, how's the school board ensuring school funding decisions are based on real, data-driven insights rather than assumptions? Do we have data that reflects the perspectives of our retirees and taxpayers that don't have children in Stafford County? Or is it just word of mouth? Action 3, we want you to invest in community advocacy by allocating resources to a targeted outreach campaign that educates families, commuters, taxpayers, retirees, and students on the budget process and highlights public education as a key economic driver for Stafford County. Stafford is a commuter town with many residents disengaged from local policy. A proactive outreach campaign must educate taxpayers on how school funding works and its long-term impact. Mrs. Susan Randall, can citizens ask for a commitment to educate the public about the budget process and not rely solely on grassroots advocacy? Action 4, we want you to strengthen the school board and Board of Supervisors joint working group into an action-oriented task force that directly addresses Stafford County school funding crisis and delivers solutions through strategic planning, accountability, and measurable outcomes. The joint working group must shift from discussion to action, delivering measurable outcomes that are publicly tracked. Quarterly meetings are too slow. The urgency of budget shortfalls, teacher retention issues, and inflation-driven costs demand bi-monthly or monthly meetings to maintain momentum. Citizens see no clear outcomes from this group. Public progress reports, measurable deliverables, and accountability metrics must be established. Mrs. Patricia Healy, what work can this group share with citizens that you are most proud of? Action 5, adopt a joint resolution between Stafford County Public Schools and the Board of Supervisors for a multi-year funding strategy that increases local education funding, including a one-time allocation to address past funding gaps and inflation, and establish a fiscal formula based on enrollment, inflation, and new business revenue to address long-term financial stability. A formal agreement between the school board and Board of Supervisors ensures consistent, predictable education funding instead of reactive year-to-year budgeting. Mrs. Maureen Sigmund, what previous efforts can be shared with citizens that have led to an increase in local funding for Stafford County Public Schools? And how can this joint resolution create a multi-year funding strategy that ensures long-term financial stability? Action 6, we want you to engage with the Stafford Economic Development Department and the Economic Development Authority to establish an agreement with cybersecurity data centers and logistic businesses for investment in local public schools. High-growth industries like cybersecurity, data centers, and logistics directly compete with education for talent. Yet Stafford EDA attracts businesses with low taxes and incentives without requiring investments in schools. If strong schools are a part of Stafford's business attraction strategy, then businesses must financially reinvest in public education. The school board must formalize a partnership with the Stafford EDA and the Stafford EDD to advocate for school funding as part of economic development planning. Ms. Alyssa Halstead, does the board feel empowered to seek a formal funding commitment from the Stafford EDA and the Stafford EDD to ensure business invested in Stafford also invest in our public schools? Citizens believe this is achievable. How will you make this happen? Action 7, establish a formal partnership between the school board and planning and zoning departments to integrate school capacity and infrastructure needs into land use planning, ensuring sustainable development that supports public school infrastructure alongside residential growth. Stafford's residential zoning outpaces commercial development, increasing student enrollment without adequate tax revenue to fund schools. The school board must work with planning and zoning intentionally to ensure school capacity projections are factored into zoning decisions and prevent school overcrowding. The 3R plan must be integrated into Stafford's long-term growth strategy to fund school improvements in alignment with development trends. Mrs. Patricia Healy, how is the school board collaborating with the planning and zoning department to ensure responsible growth planning and the prevention of school overcrowding and alignment of capital improvements are aligned with future enrollment needs? 2 more actions left, I promise. Action 8. Oh, I forgot to click. Action 8. Propose an amendment to an existing bill or introduce a new bill to the Virginia General Assembly for consideration during the first scheduled adjournment in 2026, addressing full cost of competing adjustment, COCA, funding for teacher and support staff compensation. Stafford's rapid growth surpasses Manassas and Manassas Park, yet they receive full COCA while Stafford does not. High-paying industries like cybersecurity and data centers are increasing competition for teachers. Without full COCA, Stafford struggles to retain and recruit educators. Expanding COCA has been done before. Stafford should be next. This is about fairness, not taking funding from other districts. Mrs. Maya, what specific lobbying and advocacy efforts have the school board and board of supervisors undertaken to secure full COCA funding for Stafford County? And last but not least, Action 9. Unite all Planning District 8 COCA recipient counties and Nova school districts as a joint resolution to remove COCA caps, secure legislative sponsorship, and make COCA cap removal a state budget priority to address current labor costs and inflation. COCA caps fail to adjust for inflation, making Stafford's teacher salaries uncompetitive. The cost of living has skyrocketed in Stafford and Northern Virginia, yet COCA caps remain outdated, preventing fair teacher compensation. A joint resolution with other Planning District 8 school divisions strengthens Stafford's case for full COCA funding and makes cap removal a statewide priority. Dr. Warren, what past actions has the board taken to collaborate with Planning District 8 school divisions to advocate for removing COCA caps? Have any of our state legislators shown interest in sponsoring these efforts? CBAC will continue advocating for sustainable school funding. The school board must take action now to address funding gaps. This is election year for multiple districts. Citizens are watching to see how school funding is prioritized this budget season. We must invest in education or potentially risk losing public trust and long-term economic competitiveness. Thank you for this opportunity, and we welcome your questions and comments.
Thank you very much, all of you, and Dr. Hunter for the presentation.